Hello, everyone. I am so excited that you're here to join us. I'm going to wait 2 minutes to let people into the room, and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. So we are starting to get to some critical mass. So I'm going to start our presentation. I'm Amber Kuhar-Bell. I'm the Chief Strategy and Operations Officer here at OFN, and I'm so excited that everyone has joined us to hear about OFN's Clean Communities Investment Accelerator launch plan, or CCIA launch plan. A few housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded. The slides will be available, and we encourage everyone to use the Q&A box for questions. I love seeing all these names. These are all our friends from across the country serving all of our amazing communities. So without further ado, I'm going to get started, go over our goals and agenda, and introduce our other panelists. So in this webinar, I am going to provide the overview of the GGRF program, why CDFIs, and our approach. And then I will introduce Jessel Amin, our Chief Investment Officer, who's going to go into further detail about our program launch, capitalization, and TA funding in our pilot application. And then last but not least at all, Sindhu Lakshmanan is going to wrap up the webinar discussing our capacity building approach, our nascent lender training pilot, and the OFN 40 conference in October. So then on the third slide, I'm going to have to talk through our disclaimer, which is everything that the lawyers make me say. So get ready, buckle up. The information in this webinar is only provided as a courtesy. Applicants must review all the applicable laws, regulations, and for the awardees, everything is going to be written in written agreements. Applicants are responsible for conducting their own analysis of the CCIA program eligibility, and the information should not be construed as legal advice or substituting for your conducting your own eligibility and compliance analysis. The lawyers made me do it. Don't blame me. So on the next slide is really when we get into this program. So just to level set, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, but I'm going to take the next few slides just to level set and make sure everybody's on the same page. So the reason why we're here today is as part of the IRA, there was a $27 billion fund called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and it was broken into 3 programs, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the goals of this program are really about mobilizing financing to address the climate crisis, to ensure that our economy is competitive in the future state, and to really promote energy independence while developing and building the benefits to communities. So this is the last part is the most important. This is a community-based program. And so we really want to make sure that the outcomes of this program lower energy costs, create cleaner air, healthier communities, good quality jobs, and economic revitalization. All of these outcomes are things that we're really familiar with because this is like the mission of CDFIs And so in the next slide, we're really going to go through the breakdown of where this $27 billion and why we're talking today. So the anchor in my mind of this program is the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. So that is the $6 billion. And this program was really designed to drive capital into low wealth communities by building the capacity of community lenders to increase their climate lending capacity. And there were 5 recipients, and of those recipients, OFN received $2.29 billion. And of that, about $2 billion OFN is intending to pass through as balance sheet grants and technical assistance through capacity building efforts and funding to you. So that's why we're here and anchoring this. The other part is that we are really trying to create on-ramps for you to access the National Clean Investment Fund, or NCIF, which is $14 billion and was awarded to 3 organizations. And last but not least, Solar for All, which was $7 billion given to 60 organizations across the country. In the next slide, I want to really highlight why are we doing this. We did this, OFN applied for this funding because of our members, because of mission-driven community lenders. The whole goal of CCIA and why OFN felt uniquely suited to apply for this money was because of you. We know that you are the best organization suited to be the capillaries of our financial institution to drive these community benefits to low wealth and underserved communities to transform the clean energy financing market. And OFN has designed this program to be a resource hub for you, mission-driven community lenders, CDFIs, to provide the capital, technical assistance, and market building support. Why we're here, though, what we've been doing for since April, and we made the announcement, is really our program launch. So on this slide, the next slide, we are really going to see that what we've been doing since April is really going deep into the EPA terms and conditions, helping negotiate those to make those the best program possible for you, and developing our strategy to help create the most impactful and helpful program for you. So what are we doing? We're launching the program right now. The goal for the next year is to really test, learn, build, scale, and support, right? Those are our pillars of how we're building out our program. And you can see October 10th, we are really excited to say that we're launching our CCIA capitalization and technical assistance funding with a pilot round on October 10th. Later on, Sindhu and Jessel will really get into the details of this. And then early in 25, we're going to pilot our nascent lender training. But throughout 2025, we will open up our full round of applications. We will convene learning communities, and we will build out the capacity building and technical assistance support services to make this program a success by making you successful and feel confident in your ability to grow and expand your climate lending practice. So on the slide 8, we're really going to see these 7 very detailed investment objectives. And these investment objectives tie directly to the CCIA structure of the program that was outlined by the EPA. And so I'm not going to read all of these, but really why I wanted to share this is it really anchors the structure of OFN's approach, what we're going to be measuring, and how we're going to be implementing this program. But the most important is we are member forward, and the whole idea of how we design this program, and on the next slide, we'll see that we made this whole program to be members first, to demystify the process, to make you as capable and confident in this as possible, and also get you the funding you need. And so we're divided this into a couple of different ways. Is preparing for the application. You'll see that we'll have webinars, one of which is this, our toolkits, our checklists, our office hours, and help desk. And then all of this was really informed by you. We had listening sessions. We have an industry advisory council. We had numerous one-on-one conversations, and then continue to improve our listening sessions. For example, at the Small Business Finance Forum, we had several listening sessions to really figure out how to address the barriers and perceived barriers of this program. On the next slide, you'll see that we designed this program to meet you where you're at. We understand that everyone is a different place on this journey, that we are growing from nascent lenders to established climate lenders. And as Harold said in the last OFN conference, that we want every one of our members to become climate lenders over the next in the future. And we're here to help with that. And so the anchoring of this is the capacity and maturity, is that this is how we have designed our program to meet lenders where they're at and provide them the tools where they're at. And how do you get into these frameworks, you ask? Well, on the next slide, we'll talk about our CLIMAT framework. So CLIMAT is the way that we help assess the capacity and track record of our mission-driven community lenders to conduct the climate lending. We recognize that different lenders are at their different stages, and we've really broken it out into 3 main groups with 6 criteria. So your capital deployment plan, how are you going to get the money? How are you out the door? What is your pipeline? What is your strategy? Then the capacity to execute the plan. What's your track record? What is your internal capacity? And what is your ability to offer customer-facing technical support for these climate projects? And lastly, program compliance and reporting. I love compliance because it keeps us honest. And really not that, but it really demonstrates the impact and tells our stories, which helps really get more capital flow to us. So assessing that impact, compliance, financial tracking, and reporting abilities. And so this is how we will assess where you are on that climate framework, and then what tools you specifically need. So on the next slide, you'll see the characteristics by category. And again, it's a lot of it is around intentionality. So how are you intentionally lending? What is your intentional strategy? What is your track record around climate lending? What products have you done? What additional supports have you in place? And you can see the nuance of each of these features of the climate lending categories and the characteristics. And really, you know, culminating in the established, which has that robust track record, the active pipeline. But our goal is to get everyone to where they want to be, from nascent to established, and providing that roadmap. So in our application, which is public and on the EPA website, in the next slide, you'll see our funding strategy, which is really, we are anchoring this program in the capitalization funding subawards, which are up to $10 million maximum across all CCIA programs. That again is grant capital to the CDFI or community lenders balance sheet. And that is going to be restricted for CCIA eligible projects. Now, you wonder what CCIA eligible projects are? Don't worry, we will tell you later in this presentation. So the next thing is, how do I do this when I have the money, but I need money to get started? That's what the technical assistance subaward financing is for. So we will give you up to $1 million in TA subawards, again, from all CCIA grantees, to really build your capacity to do CCIA eligible projects. Think of this TA money as hiring staff, to market analysis, to training, technical supports, you know, site and building assessments, permitting support. There's a lot of uses. This is very flexible TA capital intended for operational support. And they're going hand in glove, because we understand that you need operational capital as well as the financing capital, which is that capitalization funding. And so we're going to provide these hand in glove. So it's one application for both. And just to keep us moving forward, we're thinking about this as the initial deployment period for that capitalization funding and TA sub awards is 3 years. On the next slide, we're really going to get into that CCIA eligible projects. So this is the anchor of the CCIA program is where can you spend this money? So the project category has to be one of the 3 following categories. It has to be distributed energy generation or storage, net zero emission buildings, and zero emission transportation. We have a lot of guidance coming. So this is just an overview. I realize I'm talking fast because you should see all the slides that we have, but I will endeavor to slow down. So thank you so much for that feedback. So the CCIA eligible projects, not only do they have to be one of the project categories, they have to have a climate and social impact. So it has to be targeted to members of a LIDAC community. LIDAC, that's a new acronym. It's low income and disadvantaged communities. That is essentially, there's a strong overlap, but in a not 100% overlap of the census tracts that we serve as part of the CDFI funds eligible target markets. The project has to reduce or avoid greenhouse gas emissions. It has to reduce or avoid other air pollutants. It can use commercial technologies, and it has to deliver other benefits. Now, a lot of these climate and social impacts just happen because you're in the project category. So we don't worry too much about this. And again, we'll have a lot of guidance. And then the financing approach. This again is really what CDFIs do, which is the projects have to meet both of the financing elements, which is the project may otherwise not have been financed, or the project mobilizes private capital. The next slide is where we'll really get into the private capital mobilization. So I'm going to delve deeper into this slide, and I realize that this is a very text-dense slide, but the main takeaway that I want to drive you to is that OFN had to create a private capital mobilization strategy and methodology. And in that, we created a very broad view of what private capital mobilization is. And the private capital can be tax equity contributions, balance sheet capital, other subsidies. It also includes recycling and reuse of the CCIA capital, pre-development, takeout, and follow-on financing for construction projects. So this is a really broad view of how we think about capital mobilization. Please note, it does not include money from federal, state, tribal, or other local government entities. Overall, not each individual CDFI or bar grantee, OFN must reach a 2.5x over the 6-year performance period. So including all of the recycling of capital and the layering of the projects, pre-development and takeout, we have to get to a 2.5x private capital mobilization rate. We understand that different financing types, like financing an electric vehicle, is going to have a very different private capital mobilization rate naturally than an affordable housing deal. And so we have been really thoughtful in calculating each subrecipient's target based on its lending sector and its climate lending experience. We want to meet you where you're at. We want you to be successful. And so we are really looking at providing the additional guidance materials and definitions, examples, and the ranges. So this is a lot of information. We're going to go into the program launch plan, and we are going to cover a lot of information. I did see a note in the chat about like net zero emissions building is a high bar. That is the general category, and part of the definition of that particular category is the path to net zero. So there's a lot more information that will come. I'm going to hand it over to Jessel to talk through our program launch now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so pleased to join you today to share more about our program launch. This moment really is the culmination of the tireless effort and the visionary leadership of the team at OFN and the broader community. I am incredibly humbled to join OFN at this time and serve this organization and this industry in this historic moment. My work will include sort of overseeing the growth of OFN's capital under management, as well as sort of helping to lead the deployment of capital under OFN's environmental and climate program, including CCIA. So I am very much looking forward to connecting with all of you in the coming months and supporting you in your journey towards becoming a climate lender. So today I'm going to be joining you and talking about sort of walking through what you can expect to see and how you'll be able to prepare for the launch on October 10th. So let's move into the next slide. So to begin with, OFN expects to make 15 to 20 awards in the pilot round. A full funding round is available to all OFN membership beginning in early 2025. And just to remind you that this is a 6-year program and there will be multiple rounds of funding. And so the detail that I'm going to be sharing today is largely focused on the pilot, and there'll be sort of additional guidance on the following subsequent rounds of funding. So there are sort of 3 buckets or sort of focus areas within our pathway to success. We are really in this endeavor sort of focused on maximizing efficiency by really focusing on ready applicants to help test the process and capture learnings. This limited pilot really allows us to capture feedback quickly and refine and make sure that this experience is really positive for all of our members and that we can implement these changes for the subsequent rounds of funding. We endeavor to provide a lot of training and resources and support to assist members in accessing this funding. And we're going to be sort of digging into what some of that resources and support looks like. So we can move into the next slide. So to begin with, I'm going to talk around sort of what are the components of eligibility for the pilot. The first requirement is to be an OFN member in good standing, the definition of which is sort of having your membership paid in full and your the completion of your annual member survey. The second category is the submission of past support for the CCIA application. This takes sort of 3 forms that we've accepted in the past. The first is the submitted letter of interest, or a letter of support, or a climate pipeline form. The third is the completion of the nascent lender self-assessment. And just to clarify, sort of members who self-assess as nascent will not be eligible for the pilot round. We can move into the next slide. In the subsequent slides, I'm going to be talking about sort of the pilot application process and how to access capitalization funding and TA subawards. So, there are 3 components to the application, and we are really excited to bring to you a really sophisticated technology platform that will aid in the collection of materials related to the application. And there was a lot of intentionality and thoughtfulness in the design of the pilot. It has been broken into 3 areas, largely as a way to help to reduce the burden on the applicant, ensuring that only eligible applicants are sort of progressing into each subsequent part, which is increasingly sort of more time intensive and it requires more rigor in its completion. So the first component is a really brief eligibility screen. It just takes a couple minutes to complete, and the platform delivers a response within a couple of minutes. It's sort of a verification of your identity and your organization, as well as sort of a screening for the eligibility requirements I outlined earlier. Part 1 of the application, so essentially if you are identified as being eligible through the screening process, you would be sent a link for part 1 of the application. Part one of the application sort of is an assessment of the organization's overall financial health and capacity and your experience with federal funding. It includes sort of categories for the request for the amount of the capitalization funding and the technical assistance award. It includes a section for your strategy and high level projections. It requires submission of your closed loans in CCIA eligible projects, as well as the submission of a 6-month pipeline and a description, sort of a narrative description of your private capital mobilization strategy, as well as finally sort of an acknowledgement of the federal and CCIA program requirements. You will submit that application that will be received by the team at OFN and evaluated. And 15 to 20 applicants will be invited to participate in part 2 of the application. Part 2 involves sort of more detailed materials that help in the evaluation of your climate and CAMEL analysis. And this includes a more detailed climate lending strategy, a submission of your climate lending policies and procedures, an assessment of sort of your organization's climate lending capacity and your staffing, as well as detail around your history and sort of how you do loan reporting. We will request information on your product terms and request sample credit memos. We want to sort of try to understand more around sort of the technical assistance you'll offer and how you collect impact data. So I know that you all are absorbing a lot of information. This material will be available after the webinar for your sort of broader consumption. We can move to the next slide. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time to help you understand how we will be prioritizing the selection of the 15 to 20 applicants for part 2. There are 4 components to this, and they include the strength of the CCIA capitalization funding subaward strategy, so the overall strategy, the strength of the eligible project pipeline, and third, the track record of lending in CCI eligible projects. And fourth, the level of projected private capital mobilization. And just to clarify that these are the priorities for the pilot round. And this really sort of lends itself to like our objective of securing capital for folks who are ready to deploy. And that's why you're seeing that these are the evaluation criteria. In subsequent rounds, these selection priorities will change, and guidance around how these priorities will change will be forthcoming. We can move over to the next slide. So this slide provides a high-level overview of our timeline. So as has been mentioned, October 10th is the application open date. This will be the day that we will release the request for applications. It will approximately be open for around 30 days. In late Q4 of this year, we will invite 15 to 20 applicants to complete part 2. Our goal is to announce the subawards in Q1 of 2025 and begin the first round of funding in Q2 of 2025, and then sort of ongoing implementation of the program beyond that. We can move to the next slide. So on October 10th, we will be releasing the request for application. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time previewing the guidance that will be available in this very lengthy and comprehensive document. The goal for this document is to really help you understand the program objectives and to provide guidance around how to sort of complete the application and sort of give you a little bit more information around the eligibility, give you information around how to submit the application, what the scoring process and evaluation process looks like, and how notification and award administration will work. They'll also include lots of helpful information around definitions and acronyms and various resources in the appendix. This upcoming RFA is specific to the pilot, and subsequent rounds of funding will have their own RFA with information that's pertinent to that particular round. So look out for this document. It will provide a ton of helpful guidance for you on this pilot. We can move over to the next slide. So at this point, you might be asking what you need to be working on in the coming weeks to help prepare for the application. So we have put together a list of some steps that you can take to help get prepared. The first is to obtain a unique entity identifier from sam.gov and ensure that your existing registration is active. So just a note on sam.gov, it's the official system for U.S. federal contracts and grant assistance. If you're a new user, you need to register as soon as possible. And existing users should just make sure that their account is active and everything is up to date. We at OFN do not have a role in sort of maintaining sam.gov. And so you'll need to contact the Federal Service Desk for technical assistance and sort of helping with the completion of that task. A few tasks related to OFN, make sure that you are current on your membership dues and your annual member survey, and make sure that OFN has all of your up-to-date contact information. In terms of the things that you can do to get ready for the program and the application, you'll want to work to understand CCIA project eligibility and review some of the guidance material that we have provided, and there'll be sort of more information forthcoming as well. You want to start to work on your private capital mobilization strategy, and sort of really sort of hone in on sort of some of the capacity requirements internally to comply with the many requirements of this program, and for the reporting requirements. So lots for you all to work on in the coming weeks, and we hope that this list will sort of help you to get started. We can move to the next slide. So, there has been on sort of information, and this slide has several references to the various compliance and reporting requirements that have been determined by the EPA. And these are requirements for all subrecipients of CCIA. And we provided sort of an outline of this information, and just a sort of a disclaimer that this guidance is subject to change based on guidance from the EPA. But this is our effort to sort of summarize some of the areas that you should be aware of. So there is the authorizing statute, so Section 6103 of the Inflation Reduction Act. Then there's the program regulations, which has been established by the EPA and exists under the CCIA program. There are national policy requirements. And so this is where you're going to see material around Build America, Buy America, Davis-Bacon and related acts, the Uniform Relocation Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, and Justice 40. And then there are administrative regulations, all of the applicable regulations and rules and policies found in 2 CFR 200 and 2 CFR 1500. And then there are also the reporting requirements. So on a semi-annual basis, there will be project and transaction level data reporting requirements. So this might be the point in the presentation where you're feeling really overwhelmed. And we are here to ensure that we are working very intentionally to cultivate the resources and tools for you all to be successful in navigating this. So we can move to the next slide. We will be offering really robust services and really endeavor to sort of help to demystify this process for you. There'll be templates and tools and webinars, and reporting and compliance support will be integrated into our overall capacity building framework. So the support is going to be ongoing and is going to be responsive to our member needs. And as the needs of our members evolves, the material and the format will evolve as well. So the next slide actually provides sort of higher level overview of some of the tools and exciting resources that we will be bringing you. So some of the things that are available to you now are sort of they sort of fall into two categories: things that are sort of helping to drive overall capacity building and help you to navigate the program, and then materials that have been designed to help you navigate the application process. So here's a list of items. They include things like program, FAQs, our climate lending practitioner resource library, our climate lending 101. The next course will be offered in December, and other material related to understanding project eligibility and private capital mobilization. Then there are going to be lots of materials that are really targeted around application support. So the request for application, which is that very detailed document that I listed earlier, we'll be providing you with a Word version of the application to aid in the collaboration internally within your organization. You'll receive various templates related to how we expect to see information around your projected pipeline. We'll be providing robust guidance for the application itself. There will be a comprehensive project eligibility tool, and there will be access to our climate help desk as well. So we are very much looking forward to providing additional detail around all of these resources in the coming weeks. And with that, I will turn it over to Sindhu to talk more about capacity building.
Thanks, Jessel. Hello, everyone. I'm Sindhu Lakshman. I head for development services at OFN. So as Amber and Jessel have both noted, we're very focused on providing tailored resources and programming to support lenders in their journey along the climate curve. You can head to the next slide. This is where our capacity building strategy really comes into play. It leverages our existing development services, allowing us to provide an integrated member-forward, adaptive set of tools and resources, training, and programming. Through the containment services you see on the slide, we're really aiming to support the ability of mission-driven lenders to build and manage a successful climate lending program, no matter where you are in that journey. These services are designed to be practitioner-centered, like our rest of our development services. We're really focused on delivering actionable information that will allow you to translate concepts into practice. So we intend to partner with members and other providers already doing this work in their communities to really help them develop and create content for these various services. Our strategy also aims to provide different means to engage with us and modalities for learning, because we recognize that people learn in different ways. And so, for example, we have a climate lending resource library that Jessel just mentioned, which is being built out in phases. Right now, it has a curated set of existing resources. We'll be building out sector, product, and compliance guides and tools over the next year to deepen the landscape of reference materials specifically tailored to CDFIs and other mission-driven lenders. A help desk will provide application assistance and eventually project-level assistance, project technical assistance support to members. For awardees, those lenders with climate lending experience, will be launching CCIA Communities of Practice in 2025 to cultivate peer learning, provide technical expertise, and meet ongoing needs that arise as you seek to deploy CCIA funds. We'll also run training boot camps to meet the unique needs of lenders in each phase of the climb curve, and provide deeper learning opportunities to awardees, complementing the communities of practice. Many of you have been to and are familiar with our industry events. We're really excited to offer a new climate-focused forum modeled after our Small Business Finance Forum starting in 2025, which will offer opportunities for networking, reflection, inspiration, and learning, all the things that the industry has come to value at an OFN event, which will come through in the form of plenaries, breakout sessions, and training. Last but not least, if you're new to climate lending and just getting started in your journey, we'll be offering a nascent lender training program. The details for this program are noted in the next slide. So as Jessel shared, if a lender identifies or is assessed as a nascent climate lender, they won't be eligible to receive financing at this time from OFN. Characteristics of nascent lenders that Amber shared earlier, it includes organizations that don't yet have a climate lending strategy and either have no or limited experience in deploying products and programs that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. To support nascent lenders, we've designed a virtual training program that will accelerate your journey from nascent to emerging climate lender. Through tailored targeted support over a concentrated 6-month timeframe, organizations will be equipped with the tools, resources, and knowledge to build a foundation for a successful climate lending program that will position you to apply for CCIA funding from OFN in future rounds. The program will engage a maximum cohort of 35 CDFIs and other mission-driven lenders and content that's relevant across all climate lending lines of business. It'll also offer content that's tailored to 3 core lines of business. That includes home and consumer lending, real estate project lending, and small business lending. So it's both stuff that will help you no matter kind of which line of business you're in and get tailored to the specific line of business that you might be most interested in. The program is structured as 6 modules. Each one's focused on a critical element of developing a new lending program, including strategy development, customer journey and pipeline development, loan product options and design, impact tracking and reporting, building a business model, and preparing for OFN CCIA application. So for all of the lenders, this isn't something that you already do when it comes to building out a lending program. It's just in the context of climate. What does it take to build a new climate lending program, and how do we help you fast track that? Each module is going to have an instructor-led training session, assignments, and activities associated with it to help you operationalize these concepts within the context of your organization. We do want to emphasize that completion of the program is not going to guarantee you access to CCI funding from OFN. To be successful, you'll need to dedicate staff time and make a commitment to operationalizing the assignments and lessons during the 6-month program period. And to that end, to participate in the training program, organizations will have to apply. The eligibility criteria for the pilot training program mirrors the criteria Jessel shared earlier. A key evaluation criteria is going to be an organization's willingness to make the commitments required of the program. This includes reserving dedicated time twice a month for program activities and allocating about 80 to 120 hours over 6 months, which is the equivalent of 13 to 20 hours per month. All program dates from January to June 2025 will be shared upfront in the application. We're asking organizations to reserve this time as we believe it's really important to have dedicated work time, whether it's to participate in a training session, a program activity, or to work on assignments. We know how busy everyone gets. CDFI practitioners, mission-driven lender practitioners do a lot every day. It can be hard to make the time to allocate and dedicate to something different. And which is why we're asking that commitment of you upfront. We're going to provide all the resources and skills and tools that you will need, but we're asking you to kind of alongside us provide that time to make sure that we can help you get to where you need to be at the end of 6 months. The more deeply organizations invest in this work, the quicker they'll be able to build their climate lending competency. Along those lines, every organization is also going to be asked to have 2 senior team members participate in the program. We know that successfully building a foundation for a climate lending program requires organizational-wide buy-in led by its leadership team, and that requires people with the authority to drive that change at their organization participating, and that's senior team members. So we're asking that 2 senior team members participate in all training days and lead the completion of assignments at their organization. So the application will have a lot more details around all of these elements, but we just want to be upfront about that. And so we recognize that participating in this program requires a resource and time commitment, especially for organizations with lean teams. So we're exploring options to offset employee time allocated to the program, such as issuing stipends. On the next slide, you'll see the timeline for application and launch of our pilot training program. Applications will open on October 10th alongside the application for funding. We'll select the first cohort of up to 35 organizations in late fall so that program participants have the time to complete some light pre-work prior to the launch of the program in January 2025. That pilot training program will run from January to June 2025. In keeping with our member-forward practitioner-focused approach, we'll be seeking feedback from pilot participants throughout the program to ensure we're meeting your needs, delivering relevant content, and improving user experience for future program cohorts. Our intent is that the pilot training program graduates will be ready to apply for funding from OFN by late 2025. Over the next few years, we do intend to run 2 cohorts of nascent lender training each year through 2028, serving up to 210 organizations. So this is an ongoing opportunity. It's not a one-time only element, and it means that you can select the right time for your organization to participate in this program if you are a nascent lender. On the next slide. Finally, we do recognize this is a lot of information to take in and process that has come through relatively quickly. So I'll close this up by sharing some opportunities to engage with us and learn about our CCIA program at our upcoming conference. We'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary in LA with nearly 2,500 attendees in just over a month. Over 3 days, we've intentionally curated sessions to help demystify GGRF programs, from 101 level sessions to select office hours, as well as sessions that will help you leverage the expertise of our members and other mission-driven lenders and partners who have been doing this work to deliver workshops that delve into the nuts and bolts of what it means to do climate lending across a variety of sectors. One thing to note is that we are sold out as of yesterday for the 3rd consecutive year, which is really exciting. If you haven't registered yet and are interested in attending, we do have a limited waitlist available, which you can join at the event registration site. Otherwise, all the content that will be shared at our conference, all the slide decks, will be available on CDFI Connect afterwards. So we do have plans to leverage that content for those who aren't able to attend. Okay, and with that, I will take us to the next slide, which is Q&A. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions that have built up over the last 45 minutes. And so we're going to transition to Q&A and allow you time to ask us those questions.
Hello. While we're getting our Q&A set up, I want to just touch on a couple of questions and overarching themes that we saw through this webinar. And one is, you saw in the very beginning that there are 8 primary GGRF recipients, and below those, there are a lot of organizations that are subrecipients and involved in the GGRF program. It is very important that you know that OFN is collaborating with and coordinating with the other CCIA and NCIF recipients to serve our members, loan funds, banks, credit unions, and that we understand the different business models have different needs. And there is, this seems like a lot of money. It's not a lot of money when you also think about the needs of our communities and the financing. So I want to be clear that there is so much more to come, and we are still digesting a lot of this information. And the EPA is still digesting this information. So for example, there is currently a information collection request, or ICR, where the EPA is gathering feedback on potential and finalizing the reporting information and how greenhouse gas reductions are going to be calculated. So just wanted to level set there, and Lisa has been aggregating our questions, so we'll start off now.
Great, Amber. I can say that a lot of people really want to get their hands on that RFA. So maybe we can remind them when that's going to become available.
So drum roll, please. But it is on October 10th. October 10th is the day that OFN is going to open up our request for applications, or equivalent of a NOFO for anybody who is familiar with the CDFI funds language. And that is, we will have, again, what Jessel said is breaking it up. The pilot is being broken up into 2 parts. So part 1 is to really level set who is interested, select those 15 to 20, and then pilot recipients, and then they will go on to provide more information for the awards assessment. And just to be really clear, that the CCIA awards, this RFA, is for grant capital. This is grant capital going to your balance sheet for your climate lending financing and your climate lending program. NCIF and the other GGRF programs are more of the debt capital side. This is really designed to build your capacity, on balance sheet capacity.
We also have a question I'm sure many have about how you're going to calculate reduction of greenhouse gases, and will there be any sort of tools or anything support for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I alluded to this a little bit when I was talking about the EPA. The EPA is really trying to centralize and support the standard GHG, or greenhouse gas reduction calculations. And so we are really at OFN trying to take that burden off of the CDFIs at this point. That's what we're endeavoring. We'll have a lot more information to come out. But this, for right now, we want our CDFIs to really focus on what they do best, which is lend and learn to build this pipeline of climate lending tools, and not necessarily the technical capability of greenhouse gas reduction calculations.
I have a question directed at Jessel. It's kind of a multi-part here, but to apply, does the applicant need to have an already established pipeline of potential borrowers and have closed at least 6 loans? There are a lot of CDFIs that struggle with the closed loan requirement.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So for the pilot round, the track record, so loans closed and the pipeline are sort of key criteria and are sort of selection priorities for this pilot round. That's not to say that that won't evolve for subsequent rounds of funding. For this first round of funding, yes, a strong pipeline and track record of lending into eligible projects will be part of the evaluation criteria. At least 6 is not a determination. We will sort of holistically look at sort of the overall deployment, and so that number 6 is not necessarily anchored to the scoring, but we will just look at the overall track record and strength of pipeline.
Thanks, Jessel. I'm going to bundle 2 of these together. So one is about the $10 million cap on the capitalization to one organization at a point in time, or total grant funding for the life of the program. And related, are we able to solicit or ask for funds from multiple prime awardees?
So go for the 10 million, it is for the program. And then Amber, did you want to take the second question?
Yes. So you can apply for multiple CCIA awardees. Each one has a nuanced focus of who they're targeting. So, for example, Appalachian Community Capital and the Rural Bank for Green Bank for Rural America is really focusing on energy, communities, and rural. And so there's going to be complementary programs. And each one of the CCIA recipients also has its own exception policy. And so there are exception policies over the 10 million, but that needs to be worked through with each CCIA recipient. And to be clear, OFN is not going to be issuing exceptions for the pilot round or round 1. We want to make sure that we are reaching a broad swath of our membership. So we anticipate currently funding around 309 community lenders or mission-driven community lenders. And I want to be clear, we use the word CDFI a lot, but we also use the word mission-driven community lender. And to be an OFN member, you do not have to be a certified CDFI. However, you do have to be a mission-driven community lender. And so that is really important for us, that we are not requiring you to be a certified CDFI, but we do want to make sure that part of our criteria for membership is ensuring that community-based accountability and community-driven focus.
I have another question directed for you, Amber. Can you clarify for folks the requirement around supporting our application last year? Just provide a little more information on that.
Yeah, and this is only for the pilot round, is that during our application process, we ask members and others to submit a climate lending pipeline information, so data on what you would be interested if you receive this money, what you could be financing. So it really helped shape the strategy of the program and OFN's application. The application also asks for letters of intent, like would you want to participate in the CDFI, the CCIA program through us. And so that is what we meant by that, but that is only for the pilot round. And round one early in 2025 will not have that restriction.
Thanks for that. This question is for Sindhu. If a lender kind of assumes that they're going to be nascent, is it worth it for them to go through the self-assessment, or what is the best course of them if they want to get started as soon as possible?
Yes, we do want people to take the self-assessment so that and then when the RFK goes out, there will be that first part of the application will be that self-assessment. And so when lenders take that, they'll automatically be directed towards the application for nascent lender pilot training program.
This question is probably for Amber. Can you apply under both CCIA and NCIF awards?
Yes, they're very different. So NCIF has been awarded to 3 organizations, and they have their own strategies and their own approaches and what they are financing. Those are financing NCIF. CCIA is grant-based. And think of us as like a mini CDFI fund, right? We are passing in through government funding in the form of a grant. NCIF, think of it as more of maybe a bank approach, and that is debt capital. So these programs are all designed to intentionally work together. So the CCIA strategy that Sindhu and Jessel are working on and our market building support are all designed to work in conjunction with and supplement the NCIF strategies.
This question is for Jessel. I know we did talk about this, but there was a lot of information for folks, but maybe you could name a few of the specific resources that are coming out to help people with the application.
Sure. So the request for application is going to have sort of a lot of the rigor around sort of understanding the program and the components of the application, as well as sort of definitions and acronyms, and sort of just helping you to become familiar with the terminology used in the application. There will also be an application guidance document, and this will sort of step-by-step walk through the questions and help you to understand what the expectations are for the narrative or for the material that needs to be uploaded. There will also be various templates that will be available for your use, sort of helping you to format the pipeline so that it can be digested and reviewed and evaluated appropriately. We will have technical resources of sort of how to navigate the platform, as well as help desk to sort of help with the navigation of the platform as well. I think that those are sort of the key items that we think will help facilitate the application, as well as sort of webinars and training material available on our website as well.
Thanks. We have a question about acknowledging that we're early in the program. We are just launching. Are there any specific opportunities right now for financial institutions to support our members to ensure the success of this program?
So one of the things that we need is private capital mobilization, and some of that can be is anything that is, essentially like rough rule is that's not federal, state, or government, right? And so NCIF does count as government because that is direct capital from the government. However, for example, OFN's balance sheet investments for our justice fund does consider to be private capital. So thinking about leveraging your balance sheet, building out balance sheet investments, those are really easy ways as well right now to build the relationship and easy deployment for supporting mission-driven community lenders in this endeavor. And then we are really thinking through, and I'll toss this to Jessel, about how to continue this this work and brainstorm around how to leverage.
Yeah, we are working sort of through various sort of feedback loops with our members to understand sort of what the private capital needs are going to be. Simultaneously, we're working with funders in the space to understand the role that more traditional lenders will be playing in the ecosystem, and understanding where we need to step forward and sort of help to build financial markets to support the deployment of this capital and help support private capital mobilization, and where we can bring other lenders and supporters of OFN to show up to the table and help move these projects forward. So there is lots of work being done to sort of push forward a broader strategy around how we mobilize investors to support these projects.
And we're at 2 o'clock, Amber, so I will hand it over to you for some final remarks.
Well, I truly appreciate all of these questions. Even if we didn't get to them, they will help inform our program launch on October 10th. So I look forward to hearing from many of you at the conference, and please look forward to much more material coming forth from OFN in the near future. I really appreciate this team and all of your feedback. And again, look forward to working with you to deploy this capital.